Chapter 3. The Religion of the Soul. Religion is always of the soul. Its purpose invariably is to save the soul, and it is only insofar as it is absolutely true to that purpose that any form of religion can retain its influence and power. Whenever religion no longer lives and works exclusively for its original purpose, it begins to fail, and there is nothing else that can ever cause religion to fail, whether its form or creed may be. If it is true to its purpose, it will live and grow, and advance in its methods according to the changing needs of a growing humanity. What it means to save the soul, however, is something that resolves into itself largely into what each individual may have realized in his own spiritual attainment. But as most individuals develop in groups, we find the human race separated into a number of spiritual divisions, all having the same purpose in view, saving the soul, but differing more or less, both as to the method and as to the meaning of this one common purpose. When we examine these spiritual divisions more closely, we find that they naturally arrange themselves into two special divisions, one of these much larger than the other. The larger division takes the literal view, believing in literal methods with which to save a literal soul from literal suffering in a literal, localized future. The smaller division, however, takes the spiritual view, giving the literal phase of all life an insignificant position. In all ages we have found these two special divisions, the two sometimes blending in places so that a distinct line of demarcation could not be readily drawn. But regardless of this interblending, the two principal factors, the literal and the spiritual, have always been prominent, the one always standing apart from the other. And the reason for this is readily found when we know that we have had in every age what may be called children in the faith, that is, men and women whose spiritual understanding has not been developed sufficiently to enable them to go beyond the literal significance of things. And we have also had in every age the enlightened, who could discern the spiritual elements that are within all things. We all are familiar with the literal conception of the soul and its salvation, and we know that it contains but a fragment of the whole truth. It is the best, however, that the children in the faith can understand. Therefore we must be tolerant, and also thankful that they have actually entered upon the great spiritual journey, the goal of which is complete emancipation, soul mastery, and spiritual illumination. But we are not so familiar with the spiritual conception of this eternal theme, and as the spiritual conception will henceforth become more and more prominent in all the great religions, the advancement of the race towards the spiritual having become more pronounced than ever before in history, it will be well to give closer attention to its real or interior significance. According to the spiritual understanding of life and its purpose, the saving of the soul means the living of the life, which will prevent the soul from stepping outside of the path at any time. In brief, saving life from all those adverse consequences that invariably follow when the soul, even for a short time, steps out of the true pathway of life. Salvation, therefore, according to the spiritual view, is not merely for the future or for the great eternal now, but for every moment in eternity. The true pathway of life is the eternal path of an endless ascension, the soul rising ever and ever into higher and higher states of existence. It is the path of wisdom and light, the path of freedom and truth, the straight and narrow path, the path leading directly towards the spiritual heights. But it is not a path of suffering. There is neither suffering nor bondage upon this path. It is only when we step outside this path that we suffer. So long as we are on the path, then all is well, and we are all daily rising into more perfect realization of larger joys, higher states of being, and a greater measure of all that is worthy and good. This being true, we have everything to gain, both of things temporal and of things eternal. By so living that the soul is always on the path, and what is more, every soul was created to follow the path, must sooner or later begin to follow the path absolutely in order to work out its own sublime destiny. Knowing this, we realize that we have nothing to gain through delay. Every moment spent outside the path simply means more suffering for the near future, while every moment spent upon the path means more real enjoyment, more wisdom, more power, a greater measure of freedom, and a larger life for the near future. It is absolutely true that what time we spend outside the path is time wasted, for what experience we may gain on the outside is of no value to the soul and its advancement towards mastership and illumination. On the contrary, such experience is a burden that will have to be cast aside before we can proceed on our upward journey. Here we must remember that the only experience that will prove of value is that which we gain while living uncompromisingly upon the true eternal pathway. It is the only sound principle that will avail when we meet problems for solutions. It is only light that can add to the measure of light, and it is only on the path that light can be found. When the soul steps outside of this path, it is lost, and continues lost so long as it remains outside the path. But the moment the soul returns to the path, it is saved for the present, but not necessarily for the entire future. We are living only for the now, the great eternal now, and every moment in the future must care for itself. The steps we take today are sufficient for this day. Therefore, all of our prayers must be just for today. Salvation, therefore, is a spiritual process that must ever be present, something we shall need every hour. For although we may be saved now on the path now, we may at any time step out again if we do not continue to live absolutely according to the principles of divine truth. And when we step out of the path, the soul is lost again, or the time being. It has gone astray, and is going wrong, going contrary to the laws of its being. The result will be pain and suffering, so that the lost soul is more or less in torment, and that torment never ceases so long as the soul continues to be lost, or continues on the outside of the path. Here then we find the origin of the belief in the ceaseless or endless torment for the lost soul, for torment is ceaseless on the outside of the path. But the other side of that same truth is this, that the soul can be saved at any time in eternity step in on the path again and be free. The cause of all suffering is found in this tendency of the soul to step outside of the path provided by the infinite laws of eternal ascension, and the cause of this tendency is found in the soul's natural desire for growth. This desire, in its undeveloped stages, prompting the mind to seek all places for experience and truth. Thus the misdirection of mental action is originated, and the soul turns frequently, both to the left and to the right, hoping to find the one thing we all seek, the life more abundant, knowing instinctively that a greater measure of life will bring a greater measure of all other things needed in the living of a full life. The life more abundant, however, can be realized only as our living on the path becomes more and more perfect. Therefore, the function of the true religion are to help man live continually on the path, and to live the life on the path more and more perfectly. Every effort made by a real religion must have this one object in view, to help every soul to live on the path continually. It is only in this way that a religion can be true to its purpose, to save the soul, and to be what it is founded to be, a religion of the soul. This gives us a new view of religion, a much larger view, and it is a view that makes religion indispensable. It makes religion the greatest power in the life of man, both in the temporal and the spiritual. For if religion applied its full power, then every soul would be saved now, would be on the path now, and therefore would be neither producing suffering for itself nor for others. Every soul would be living for the good, would be building for the good, and would constantly add to the peace, the joy, and the welfare of all. And this is the very condition of life we all have hoped to see established upon earth, but we have not given sufficient attention to the principal thing. The principal thing is to keep the soul on the path continually, to keep every soul on the path continually, and this is the work of religion, the true religion, the religion of the soul. We realize, therefore, what a tremendous power the religions of the world would become if they would rise out of the literal into the spiritual, if they would all work ceaselessly to save every soul now, not from future torment, but from wrong living in the present, if they would give less attention to the helping of man to die, and more attention to the helping of man to live on the path here and now in this world. The coming religion, which will be in every sense of the term a religion of the soul, will concern itself directly with this great work of the greatest work of all the world, that of guiding the soul of man so perfectly that we may all live continually on the path, and thus be saved from every pain and ill now, a complete salvation both for time and eternity. In working for such a salvation, however, the coming religion will not forget the great truth that the soul must, in order to continue on the path, continue to move forward on the path. For we know full well that we almost invariably step out of the path the moment we cease to move forward. Therefore the true religion of the soul must be prepared to teach the human race all the principles of a continuous spiritual attainment, and must possess a science of living through which any individual can learn the sublime art of living on the path. Thus we realize that religion in the future will become a far greater factor in human life than it has ever been in the past. And instead of dying out as some believe, religion is being born again, born into the consciousness of its real mission, that of helping the human race to live on the path here in this world, saving the soul of man from all the ills of life in the great eternal now. The spiritual conception of that saving of the soul is in perfect harmony with the central idea of salvation, that of going to heaven, for the soul, when on the path, is going directly to heaven, in truth, is in the beginning of a heavenly life, and is steadily rising into higher and higher heavens eternally. To be on the path is to be one with God, and to be one with God is surely a foretaste of heaven. It is the beginning of the joys that cannot be measured, of the peace that passeth understanding, of the bliss that angels alone can know. Then we must remember that to be on the path is to be free from every ill in the world, and that in itself is heaven enough for many and many a day. To live on the path, however, is not merely a secret to freedom from the ills of temporal life, as important as that may be. It is far more than this, for it is a path, the only path that leads to spiritual heights, to all the glories and splendors of cosmic existence, to all the sublime attainments of the master state, to that higher world of wisdom and power wherein the soul of man shall be able to fulfill the great promise, "What I have done, ye shall do, and even greater things." It is such a goal, high and wonderful as it may be, that lies before us all. It is such a future that is in store for every human soul. But to reach that goal and realize that future, we must follow the path. Is it not important then, more important than all else in the world, that we live on the path continually, never for a moment turning to the right nor the left? And it is indeed time that all religions and all spiritual movements consecrate themselves absolutely to this great and wonderful work. The world is awakening to the spiritual vision. The race is no longer satisfied with the limitations of the letter, and the individual wants a plan of salvation that will save the soul both for time and for eternity, that will give complete emancipation now. And the religion of the soul is coming to answer that call, a religion that will help the soul of man to live on the path here in this world in the great eternal now. End of chapter.